Now it's finally time to end the Blue Lions.
All right, Ingrid.
Oh, she actually does have slightly different endings. Well, let's do
All right.
Let's do this one first.
Ingrid declined to rule House Galatia, instead choosing. Yeah. Choosing instead to serve House Blaled as a knight. After achieving widespread renown, she formed an elite order of Pegasus Knights who served as personal bodyguards to the nobility. She never took a husband.
That's believable.
Yeah.
What's this one?
She just went off on knighting.
When Galatia territory was seized, Ingrid argued strongly for the preservation of its borders. Her request was granted, and she was appointed to rule. From her new position, she gave her all to ensure that the people of Galatia lived peaceful lives and put in years of hard work to reform its farming practices. Her efforts bore fruit, to the people's delight, and Galatia became a land of plenty.
I'm like, maybe instead of trying to grow vegetables and grain, we should try growing fruit.
I kind of like the little aside of never. To remember, a lot of her supports were about how they kept trying to marry her.
Yeah.
Her family kept trying to marry her off to douchebags.
Like it comes up in almost every single support she has.
Yeah. So fuck you. I never took a husband. Haha.
And her paralog quest.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, you're still not over that.
Get away from the dude who's trying to kill you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, Dorothea and Ingrid is what should have happened.
Okay, but yeah, I know. But we live in not the best timeline, so I will say Ingrid. I remember her being a very good unit as a controllable unit. The thing I'll always remember about her as a unit is the first time I played through. I was trying very hard in that second half of the game to not kill any of the named characters.
I know you're excited. I know you're excited about the kitty. Soft touch.
And
Soft.
she was the unit that was too strong for me to not kill. Basically, like it basically like she showed up and it was like, well, I've got to either kill her or one of my units is going to die. So thanks, Ingrid. Thanks for having to die.
Making me make these tough choices.
Oh, wait, Bailiff first. Bailiff.
Violet announced his marriage to Ingrid shortly after succeeding Rhea as the new archbishop. Together they made great strides in helping to restore the kingdom of Fodlan to its former glory and beyond. Though Ingrid provided counsel to the archbishop as his wife, she also earned renown as the Holy Knight of Theros. Most famously, she parried an insurgent's blade with her own weapon just before it struck the archbishop's neck. Tales of the archbishop who ended the long war and his valiant wife Ingrid lived on in storybooks for generations. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think she would really dig this, actually.
Yeah, the bodyguard warrior wife. Yeah. You know, getting an Aveline kind of.
Yeah.
No.
Is this all the same? This one looks
She is quite Aveline.
Yeah. When the war at last came to an end, Blythe and his wife, Ingrid, returned to her hometown. Galatia territory had been seized by the Empire, but the Emperor granted Ingrid's wish to retain governance of it. She and her husband were initially received with skepticism, but together they worked hard to reform the territory and address its food shortages. Through hard work, pure grit,
dried fruit.
Yes, and a truly knightly dedication to the people, they were able to transform the barren landscape into what would, decades later, become known as the most fertile grounds in all of Fodland. Not nearly as cool as the other one.
I mean it's nice that they were able to do that, but this one's definitely way cooler.
Yeah.
So man, that's kind of everything Ingrid would want in a partnership, isn't it? Like, I think this guy's got to be a good one, right?
This is good.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
This is not one I would have thought of, so. Raphael returned to his hometown to serve his liege lord as a knight, and spent his spare time helping out at the inn that his grandfather and sister had opened during his time away. One day, Ingrid, who had abandoned her claim to House Galatia to serve as a knight to the royal family, arrived to persuade Raphael to join her. It did not take much convincing. From that day forward, they served together as partners, fighting together side by side to make their mark on the history of Fargus. So that's a DNF.
That's a DNF. Yeah. Let's see if the other one is not.
We need more knights. Who's a good knight? Raphael's a pretty good knight. Okay.
When Galatia territory was seized, Ingrid argued strongly for the preservation of its borders. Her request was granted, and she was appointed to rule. Soon after, Raphael traveled there to pledge his service to Ingrid. He initially signed on as a knight, but quickly discovered that his services were even more desperately needed by the land's farmers, and instead focused his efforts on helping Galatia improve its agriculture. Seeing him work side by side with the common folk, Ingrid became enamored with Raphael's character, and eventually asked for his hand in marriage. They held a modest but lively wedding, and the people happily gave their blessing to the union. Oh,
Boy, that works.
I like
That works
it.
really well, actually.
It's really
So
nice.
That's great. Basically, she was just so impressed by his wholesome goodness that she asked him to marry her.
And imagine a situation given the two of them that she walks up and goes, "Hey, Raphael, we're getting married," and he's like, "Yeah, okay."
I like it.
I don't have a great memory for all supports, but I remember almost all of Raphael's supports with like laser
Fondness.
focus, and he like this one is Ingrid finds him eating on the floor in the hall, and is like, "Hey,
Right.
you should maybe behave more knight-like," and he's like, "Yeah, I'll get right on that." And then he sees her sad about a husband letter, and he's like, what's going on?" And she tries to explain, and he clearly doesn't understand, and is like, "Why don't we go eat?" And she's like, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah, I like it. I
So-
like this. This is a good ship. Is there any other?
I think all the
That's
others
the
are
same.
the same, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, good ship.
It's a good
Good
ship.
ship.
And believable. Like the idea of Raphael going to work for Ingrid is I completely believe that.
Yeah.
And not just cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Speaking of cookie cutter.
I'm not going to believe this. That's unfair. We should. When Ingrid declined to rule House Galatia, instead choosing to serve House Blaylet as a knight. Some years later, she was reunited by chance with Ignatz, who had persuaded his family that he should become a painter and traveled all through Fodland, painting beautiful landscapes. Ignatz decided to paint Ingrid that day and spent much of the rest of his career working to get her likeness just right. There were many depictions of her bravery in battle, of course, but later generations would most fondly remember the way he captured her smile, which was widely believed to be that of a loving wife.
What does that mean?
Whoa! Is that a do not finish?
What is that? It's like they maybe got married. Let's read the other one, see if it's any better.
Okay. When Galatia territory was seized, Ingrid argued strongly for the preservation of its borders. Request was granted, and she was appointed to rule. But because she had previously abandoned her noble house, she was not well accepted by the people. It was thanks to Ignatz that the mood of the people finally softened. He showed them through his artwork a side of Ingrid they had not yet seen. Her valor and bravery. Ow, ow, ow! Despite fighting in defense of Fodland. The people were moved, first by the artwork itself, and later by the woman who had inspired it. As time passed, the region prospered, and Ingrid and Ignatz bonded over their reunion. They eventually fell in love and were wed.
I don't
It's
know.
better than the other one, I guess.
Yeah.
It doesn't do this one any favors that it's almost exactly the same as the much better Raphael ending we just read.
Yeah, but it doesn't have like the coolness of recognizing that he was really cool. Nah,
yeah, I don't think Ignatz is cool enough for Ingrid.
Yeah,
I
Their ship is not their ship. Their support is kind of funny though, because basically she sees him painting and she's like, "Hey, that's a pretty cool Saint Saros, but you could probably make it even cooler." And he's like, "I guess."
Oh, right,
And then the
yeah.
painting ends up terrible because he tries to make Saros too cool.
Like
but-
added in this, when you say too cool, I imagine he added
Added
laser
lasers.
swords.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure she specifically is like, "Hey, give her a bigger sword and shorten that skirt length up." And he's like, "I guess." But yeah, no, it's
No.
these are actually all right supports, but I absolutely do not believe these guys as a couple.
Yeah.
So we'll say bad.
yeah.
Haru?
Ingrid declined to rule House Galatia, choosing instead to serve House Blaylet as the knight. As Spargus worked with the Church of Saros to advance policy, Ingrid served as an envoy between the two. In this capacity, she met routinely with Seth, whose complete trust in Ingrid resulted in fruitful negotiations. Together,
Okay.
Spargus and the Church coordinated extensive relief efforts to return prosperity to Fodland. After they had accomplished what they set out to do, it is said that Ingrid and Seta settled down together in a small village where they spent their days in peace, farming and fishing.
Nope, they're all the same.
Yeah.
That's neat. I will never, I guess, I'll always be a bigger fan of the Ingrid endings where she's out there fighting stuff than settling down.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm not going to say this is bad,
Yeah.
but I also don't think this is good. I think this is a pretty good neutral.
Neutral. Yeah. It really feels like one of the classic neutral endings where I just like,
Yeah.
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 It's enough that it's bad.
Oh, you're actually going to go all the way bad?
It's too neutral to be. It's too neutral to be neutral.
I'm still on the neutral side, John. What do you say?
John, are you more neutral or not? The baby's voting bad.
Well, the baby does have the deciding vote, so I guess we'll go bad on this one.
Yeah, well, we can
The
can
baby
put in bad
overrules.
with that.
All right. Yuri disappeared into the underworld of the Western Kingdom and faded into
Lots of
obscurity.
werewolves.
Classic Yuri.
The only account of him that comes from a Kingdom Knight's journal, uncovered many decades later, which tell of Yuri's efforts to win the king's support for an orphanage and medical clinic to be built in the slums of the castle town. It is believed that the journal belonged to Ingrid, who had declined to rule House Galatia in order to serve House Blaylood as a knight. According to local rumor, Ingrid eventually retired from knighthood to become the owner of an inn. There it is said that she and the man wrote about cooked dishes loved by rich and poor alike. What?
What?
It's very,
Well,
it's
I'm
a
not
very
finished.
coy ending about did they or didn't they?
Huh.
See what the other ending's like.
Well, so I don't remember her being a cook.
When
Like some
Galatia,
of them are
Yeah.
specifically people who cook, and she's not one.
when Galatia territory was seized, Ingrid argued strongly for the preservation of its borders. Her request was granted, and she was appointed to rule. Though, since she had previously abandoned her noble house, she was not well accepted by the people. Despite this, she found that the common folk carried out her policies with unexpected enthusiasm and efficiency. She soon discovered it was Yuri who had convinced them of her wisdom. The two were reunited and eventually married, and under their stewardship, Galatia territory flourished. It is said that after a busy day of governance, Ingrid yearned for nothing more than a home-cooked meal prepared by her husband. That's shoehorning in and that's an ending that they're trying to shoehorn two characters into that didn't really.
Yeah.
It's better than
Also
the other
feels
one.
This is more neutral.
Also feels weird, like it could be weirdly coerced on Yuri's part. Like he's, setting himself up to take over her territory.
I suppose.
That would have been more cool, but neutral.
Neutral, I'm fine with.
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe he's not crying about it. So,
is there any we want to review before we make our calls?
well, we had already previously looked at Sylvain, which we were desperately disappointed in how it was written out, but all agree that it should be the best one. Remind me what Felix was. Oh right, yeah. Yeah, that's right. He lost his sword arm protecting his wife.
Yeah,
that one was good.
That was pretty good.
That was good. All right.
There's an element of me that's like that whole idea of her having to losing Felix's brother and the bond that Felix and her share because of that.
Yeah.
I got it. I'm gonna go Felix, Raphael, Sylvain.
I can support that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can get on board with that. Yeah.
Although, really, the correct answer is still Felix and Sylvain. But
Felix and Sylvain.
But the Raphael one was unexpectedly adorable.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a running theme for most of the Raphael ending.
That's true. All right.
I mean, that's a pretty good summation of Raphael.
That's true.